Alright, this is my BFBB early powers submission for SGDQ. And early powers is a little bit different than 80% in that we get to use both power-ups that we get later in the game straight from the start of the run. So it's kind of like an NG Plus category, but not quite because we are allowed to use 2 cheat codes to activate these powers. So it makes the movement a lot faster, and it makes the game a lot less grindy. And it adds a lot of new tricks and skips. So let's start. So we're going to enter the 2 codes that are actually legal in this category.
It's almost too pretty to break.
Now we're off.
Almost. Myself a snack, but there's no time.
So notice right off the bat we have Bubble Bowl usage in the pineapple. This route differs a lot from the 80% route because there's no backtracking first off. And also, we have a lot of fast-paced movement because we have these exploits now. We're going to actually do a cruise boost right now to do a fast taxi disable. So let's see if we can get it. Alright. So, what that just did was we disabled the hand by having it out while we went into a loading zone. There's so much to explain right now because there's a lot going on. But whenever we leave an area with the hand out, it disables it. And that's the hand that takes you when you go out of bounds. So we can now jump out of bounds here to get this spatula, kind of like we do at 80%. And we can use Warp Abuse to skip from here through half the level to where we would normally get the mission for this spatula. I'll explain cruise boosting when there are fewer things to talk about. Okay. Alright, that's a pretty precise trick. So now that we have that jump, we can now do a lot of movement to cross these gaps and collect some socks. So cruise boosting is a double frame perfect exploit. And we use the cruise bubble and the bubble bowl on the same frame twice consecutively against the platform with a strafe between, and it gives us this fast speed boost that we have here. Now when we had this speed boost activated, you can see that the bubble bash, which is when I shoot up into the air with the helmet, the slam, when the big feet come out, and the bubble spin, all those things, they all link together because I'm being pushed at a constant speed. So this game does run in 60 FPS, so it is quite difficult to get these cruise boosts consistently. And the reason why we're collecting these socks in this category is because we need to trade 10 socks to Patrick for a golden spatula per 10 socks. So you're going to see a lot of socks get collected in this category. As you can see, we already have 5. So what we just did there is we skipped a fight in this game. It's an arena fight where we have to fight these robots and save Patrick, but since we have the cruise boost exploit, we can just skip all of that and jump over. Alright, what you just saw there was called the reverse cruise boost. By facing the wall at an awkward angle and inputting the cruise boost inputs in the opposite analog, inputting it with opposite analog inputs, we can get a faster activation on it, which makes us start up faster, but the running speed is the same, but it makes us start up faster. So now we're out of bounds, skipping the entire level here, running under the map. So normally in any percent what we do is come back to this later when we have the cruise boost exploit, but since we already have it from the start, there's no backtracking, we can go straight to it. So we're going to do a clip back into the map over here. Now we have to do rock skip. It's one of the harder exploits in this game. Alright, pretty movement intensive. And we got it. Alright, cool. So now we can head on to the Spork Mountain section. You'll notice this category is a lot more exciting than 80% in a lot of spots. Because we're constantly using this cruise boost exploit. Oh no. That jump is pretty precise. We're gonna have to redo this one. Alright, that's fine. This category is fairly new compared to the other categories that I run. Well, I only run any percent as my main category, and cheap percent's kind of like a side category, miscellaneous. But compared to those categories, which have been around forever, this one's fairly new. I rerouted this entire category last month, and since then the world record has dropped by 4 minutes, and I could definitely drop it by another minute with some more play. I've done over 4,000 attempts at any percent, but for this category I've only done 400, just because it's so new. So it's going to constantly get more development, and a lot of cool things are going to be found. You might have also noticed that earlier we skipped the Drain the Lake fight. In any percent we have to throw robots at fountains with Patrick, but we can skip that because it's actually slow in this category the way it's routed. Instead of doing that, we do this new exploit called Camper Skip later in the run, and you'll see that in the Kelp Forest. We get a different spatula to replace it. So aside of doing all Jellyfish Fields straight out the gate in this category, we also do a lot of other weird things too in terms of sequence of categories, sequence of maps and levels in this game. So next we're actually going to go straight to Dream as our next main level. But first we have a lot of things to do in Bikini Bottom. A lot of cleanup. So we're done with Jellyfish Fields now. So unlike any percent, in this category we don't have to do the Squidward's House sock challenge. Instead we can just jump around 10 times and get the spatula. Because Squidward says, why don't you just jump around like an idiot? That might just make me smile. So we go ahead and jump around like an idiot. And he gives us a golden spatula for it. So this is where the route really starts to get weird compared to what you would normally see in an any percent run. This ledge is pretty inconsistent.
Now I can wear 4 pairs of underwear. This is great.
So now we're going to skip the Robo Sandy boss fight, and that's one of the major differences between this category and any percent. We don't do boss fights, and it makes it a lot faster, because the boss fights are pretty slow and repetitive. There we go, we got it. That's a pretty hard trick. So we went out of bounds, went all the way around the overworld, and now we're skipping right to Sandy's Tree Dome. The order of these segments is very strange, but it's necessary to do it in this order for several reasons. The biggest reason is that later in the game, we're going to bring the hand back into the run, because we need to exploit it for skipping a cutscene. And then we're going to send it back out again like it is now. So right now, the hand is currently disabled. Whenever I say the hand is disabled, it means that we can go out of bounds. Because when the hand is enabled, you can't go out of bounds. That was a weird lag spike. So we're currently able to go out of bounds right now. But in the future of the run, we aren't going to be able to. At some point. And then we're going to bring it back in so we can go out of bounds again. You'll see. It gets pretty exciting later. Has a lot of cool tricks that weren't shown in the any percent run. Alright, so now we need to hit a reverse cruise boost cycle here. So, again, as I said before, RCB is inputting the cruise boost inputs in reversed order. So that's why we call it a reverse cruise boost. It's one of the new exploits that wasn't done when I last had this game in GDQ. So it's brand new, it's pretty hype, really difficult to do consistently. Alright, that's a pretty difficult jump there. We got it. Not bad. So we also do just cruise boost movement instead of the sponge ball storage. We do an any percent as well. Just a lot of different tricks and a lot of new movement. A lot of cool stuff we do in this category. Now, usually in any percent we go to the Krusty Krab here. But instead, we're going to go right to the Dream. I mean, after the Chum Bucket, we'd normally do the Krusty Krab because it's right here. But the Krusty Krab doing it later into the game is necessary because of an exploit that's activated by doing it later into the game. Still can't explain why it works, but I found it by accident one day, and since then I've routed it into the game. But I'll explain it later when it happens. So since there's no backtracking in this category, we're actually just going to go right into Squidward's Dream and immediately do the Squidward's Dream challenge. Because in 80% we usually have to wait because we don't have cruise boosting yet. But since there's no waiting for cruise boost in this category, we can just go right ahead and do it. So this level has a lot of intense movement as well. Alright, now we're ready to go to Sandy's Dream. And it's funny how Sandy's Dream is so early in this category, because usually it's the ultimate run killer for other categories. It's like one of the final things you do, and it just ruins your run. But it's really early in the game for this, so it's kind of cool that you can reset if you just miss it. Alright, we got it. Nice. So this is the first instance of sponge gliding in the run. Sponge gliding happens when the game gets you stuck on an object and you can't follow any farther, so you just start floating. Put in simple terms. So now we can just skip this entire level, this whole sliding level that takes several minutes to complete. We can just float right across, and coincidentally the acorn is about the same height as the wheel that we slammed into to activate it. So we can just skip the entire level by floating right across. Now we're going to do some platforming to skip these levels too. So this trick I'm about to do is going to skip the entire dream sequence. Alright, there we go. That's pretty hard to get stuck there consistently. Pretty happy about that. Alright, so now we're going to jump a pretty large gap to skip this sequence, and hopefully the camera spins us in the right direction so we don't die. Alright, so we got the spinning animation. That's a good thing, which means we aren't going to float off the island. It's a pretty precise trick. And here we are. Because sometimes the camera will lock onto you and you just start moving and you can fall off the island. You might see it later when we abuse it for different things. Okay, we're ready to go to Goo Lagoon now. And again, the sequence is kind of strange. Because normally Goo Lagoon is the third place you go in most runs, but this category is so unique in that you have this weird order of segments that wouldn't make sense to somebody who played the game when they were a kid. It's just like a very new way of looking at the game, and especially with the cruise boosting the entire time. Alright. Yeah, so a lot of the moves in this game, when you're doing the cruise boosting exploit, again, the reason why I'm running so quickly is because I'm being pushed forward and running at the same time. So if I were to stand still, I'd just be being pushed anyway. I'd be pushed because you just had that forward momentum that doesn't stop unless you cancel it. So now we're going to do another sponge glide. Alright, if we can get it. For some reason, this isn't working right now. Alright, there we go. So this is the second sponge glide that we can do, and unlike the other one, we can't control the direction of it because we don't have a cruise boost. We're just doing it off of a damage boost, so whatever happens, happens. If we get hit on the side of a ledge here, we just fall down and die. But fortunately, we made it, so we're just gonna hit this robot for something we have to collect later. Since we have the cruise bubble early, we can hit the robot pretty early instead of any percent, where we normally do it later in the run. And now we're playing this entire level backward because we used the floating tech to skip the entire level. So now we're at the end of the Goo Lagoon, at the end of the pier. And we're going to clear out the bumper boats like we do in any percent. Oh, I missed. So this is all just playing the entire level in the reversed order of events. Alright, it's critical to get that stack of floating tikis because we need shiny objects later to pay for a toll. So good thing we got it. Okay, we do a death warp there to appear back on the pier. And now we can climb these flags. So we're going to skip a toll booth right here by climbing these. Oop. So in doing that weird sequence where we, for some reason the flags are solid, we can just climb them and skip this whole purchasing cutscene and save a lot of money. Shiny objects are the game's currency, so we want to try to hold on to them so we don't have to grind for stuff later. This category pretty much eliminates most grinding. There are very few instances that are kind of slow and repetitive in this category. So what we just did there is another death warp and a cutscene skip. By dying while the cutscene happens, we can appear back here. And since we already cleared out the bumper boats because we did the whole level in reverse order, we can just collect the spatula from Mr. Krabs. And now we're going to continue on our way to complete the entire level backward. And coming up, again, these spatulas are all in the reversed order now because this is the end of the cave and we're going to jump in this teleport box to go back to the beginning of the cave. Now, normally, you wouldn't be able to jump in a box if the other one isn't open, but the game assumes that if you can open the final box in the level, the first one should already be open, so we can jump in it and teleport to the beginning of the level. There's a golden spatula at the end of every level in each world, so by playing backward, we instantly get each one. Now we're just going to collect this sock here, get some shiny objects from destroying these tikis. And now we have to go on to complete the Balloon Kids challenge. We have to pop these balloons to save the children, and it's one of the harder sequences in the game, especially with the new reverse cruise boost strategy. It's a little bit faster, but it's a lot harder. Because cruise boosting is a frame-perfect exploit, and doing it first try with the weird angle and slide is pretty difficult when you're doing a reverse cruise boost. And we hit that invisible button earlier, so we could activate this whole area of this island and floating things so we can get the spatula without paying for the button. Alright, so we got the reverse cruise boost. And because we didn't take any time doing mistakes, oh no. Okay, that's fine. We can just go back for it later. That was really weird. Maybe what happened there was my angle wasn't right for the reverse cruise boost, so the one kid got a little bit ahead of itself. Alright, that's unfortunate, but we can just get this kid anyway. We can just warp back and get him. Yeah, it was really strange. Alright. Alright, I'm actually going to drown here, which is not wanted, but because that whole thing happened with the kid not popping, it's fine. Can't really do anything about it. Again, this is one of the hardest levels in the game for this category. So sometimes we're going to lose time there. Okay, what we just did there was a taxi cutscene skip. So we can skip the spatula disappearing animation by jumping on top of the booth because we're already in range to leave the level. Alright, that took a really long time to get. Usually it doesn't take that long. But that's a character cruise boost, and it's a lot harder to do a cruise boost on a character because the wall is not flat. You're doing it off of a rounded wall, so it's pretty difficult. Sometimes it takes a really long time to get it. So we're actually setting this up now. We have to hit these buttons to get a spatula. That's the first part of this trick that I'm about to do. But there's actually another part too. We're going to use this cutscene to re-enable the hand by going out of bounds. So now, since the hand is active again from standing on a death plane, we also skipped a loading screen by cutting off the end of that cutscene and reloading the level so all these tikis can appear again. Because we need tikis for shiny objects, and we usually reload the level in any percent to get them. So now we can get this spatula, and the reason why we want the hand back so we can't go out of bounds is because there's another trick that we can use to cancel a cutscene by falling out of bounds and ending it early. So you'll see that in a bit. So now you're going to see some platforming. We have to collect these wheels to give to Mrs. Puff later.
Number one in the Bikini Bottom scavenger hunt. 3 years running.
Now, unlike any percent, we're going to go over here and abuse this trampoline with cruise boosting momentum to get on top of this building and grab this sock over here. So we need 40 socks to complete the game, so we can trade them in for spatulas and get into the final boss, which costs 75 spatulas to get into. And now we're going to go into the Sea Needle. Sea Needle is, in my opinion, one of the flashier parts of the run, for any percent at least. In this category, there are a lot more flashier parts in the beginning of the game, but it's still pretty flashy. All the bungee tricks we have to use for it. This first part's pretty simple. We just get these tikis in a certain order so we can meet a cycle. The next set of bungees is a bit more difficult because we add in thunder tikis to the mix, and by hitting a thunder tiki, we can actually explode if we hit it. So we have to be careful not to hit it. We have to hit the tikis under it so they fall. Alright, looks like we got it. And now we have to go back here to collect this wheel. And in getting this wheel, we actually set the cycle off a bit so we can make the end of the cycle that we have to get. So far we've done what we were supposed to do. We hit the tikis in the correct order in the correct amount of time, so this should work here. The final bungee. And as you can see, we kind of just breezed right through it. It was imperfect, but it didn't take us a long time to recover from it. Good. Okay, so now we're actually gonna take a break from downtown. And the reason why we go in this sequence is because the hand is enabled now, and we can go out. We can't go out of bounds, so we need to have this property for going into rock bottom for tricks that we do in here. And you'll see in the Trench of Advanced Darkness, we're gonna do a really cool exploit that saves a lot of time because the hand is enabled. Alright, this Mrs. Puff is really difficult to cruise boost off of consistently. As you saw earlier, I kind of fumbled over it. Because Mrs. Puff is completely round. It's just a very difficult thing to do for cruise boosting. So this category has a lot of cruise boosting, as you can see. It's just constantly using it. Just activating a frame perfect trick every time you want to move, pretty much, in this category. So, because we hit that button over there, we activated this spatula that's usually here for a time challenge. You're supposed to go down a slide, and if we get down the slide in a good amount of time, the spatula is here waiting for us. But since we never touched the start of the slide, we can just get the spatula without even doing the challenge. And getting that spatula so early in the level is very important later because we can use more warp abuse to skip to the end of the level because we already got that. Because we have access to the cruise bubbles so early, we can just skip. That was pretty much what we did, was like skipping all the way to the end of the level. Because now we have access to the warp that you get for the mission you get all the way at the end. Okay, so now we're gonna abuse the cruise boost pushing. You're always being pushed when you have a cruise boost, so we're gonna abuse that momentum to jump on top of those shy tikis that usually disappear if you're walking, but since we aren't technically walking, we can jump on them and use them as a platform. Now we're entering museum. This is another part of the game that was beefed up a bit with the introduction of reverse cruise boosting, so we're gonna try to get that cycle here. Okay, this is where it starts to differ a little bit from what I did last time in GDQ. Alright, we missed it. So even though we missed it, we can still make the old cycle. Just because the reverse cruise boost strategy is so much faster. Even if we miss the reverse cruise boost, we still have enough time to get a cruise boost and do it this way. Okay, we still clip through the museum. Skip all the buttons that we have to use to take down these walls of lasers. So we just abuse the ledge grabbing clips to get through the museum. And now we're ready to go to the Trench of Advanced Darkness. And this part is the reason why we had the hand enabled now. So if we were to fall out of bounds, we'd just be taken away. We'd just die because the hand is back. And you'll see how we use it later. So we're just playing the level backward right now. Now that we got this spatula, we can warp to the beginning of this level that we weren't supposed to be in the first place. And we're going to try to go through this Trench of Advanced Darkness, making the platform cycle by playing perfectly. Okay. Collecting more artwork to get the Mrs. Puff, more socks. We're going to boost off of this rising platform using the momentum stacking exploit. Gives us a higher jump. And now we have this spatula as well. This next part is where it starts to differ a lot more from any percent compared to the normal route for this section. Because now we have to do the lasers challenge, which is not in the any percent run. It adds a lot more flashy and technical stuff to the run. Okay, so we have to watch some of these cutscenes while the lasers activate. We have to activate 3 more mini lasers to initiate the final laser, which then makes Plankton give us a spatula. So we're going to jump all these crazy gaps with SpongeBob because we're abusing the game's mechanics. Normally you'd have to use Sandy here because Sandy has, she has the hover glide, which is her 3rd jump. But since we have cruise boosting, we actually don't even need Sandy for the entire category. A lot of these jumps are pretty tight. This is where we need the hand. So we're going to fall out of bounds here, and since we brought the hand back, the hand's going to cancel this final cutscene that takes a really long time to go through. So that's the reason why we had to bring the hand back. It skipped 2 cutscenes, one of them a lot longer than the other, but it saves a lot of time. And that's what makes this category so unique compared to any percent, is that we bring the hand in and out throughout the run. And it adds a lot of cool tech to the game that you wouldn't see in any other category. Except, actually 100% does it, but it does it in a different way. Not quite the way I do it in this category. Okay, now we're going back to downtown. And we unlocked this challenge while we were doing the Sea Needle Bungee challenge, which we would have to warp to anyway if we were going straight through the entire Sea Needle at one time. So instead of getting the spatula from Mr. Krabs and Sea Needle and going right to this challenge, we do Rock Bottom first and then we come back. Because we need to disable the hand again while we're leaving downtown later in this segment. So we just come back to it. And we're gonna do a weird exploit here where we can skip this whole sandy challenge to get the sock in this area. Again, sandy's useless in this run because we have all these crazy movement exploits so early in the game. Okay, so unlike any percent where we'd be doing this 8 minutes into the run, we're doing this a half hour into the run. Which is kind of funny because this category is ordered so strangely. It's like watching a completely different game, in my opinion. So we're going to do some more cruise boosting here, some more movement tech.
Number 1 on the Bikini Bottom scavenger hunt, 3 years running.
See, normally we need Sandy to do all this stuff, but Sandy's useless because we have SpongeBob. And SpongeBob has the cruise boosting at this point. So we're also going to use SpongeBob to do the downtown rooftops. That's also a very unique thing about this category. We use SpongeBob for all the really crazy gaps throughout the entire game. And you'll see how right here.
Number 1 on the Bikini Bottom scavenger hunt, 3 years running.
So we got to go all the way back now. And hit a button to activate this trampoline. Alright, we got it. Nice. Okay, this is a really good rooftop segment so far. Now that looks easy, but it's actually pretty precise. Because there's an invisible wall blocking and we had to go under it. Still one of the easier tricks, but it isn't as easy as it looks, really. Okay. That jump's also kind of annoying sometimes, especially if you get input dropped when you're trying to slam. So we're taking a completely different route right now for the rooftops. Instead of what Sandy would be doing is going around the other way, we go across the top of all the skyscrapers and cruise boost off of these crazy objects. Okay. Here we go. Alright, so it looks like we're going to clear it. Okay, this is where the part gets a little bit confusing in this run. We're going to disable the hand right here, and it's a very precise trick. It might be frame perfect, and we got a first try. Nice. Yeah, that's a really hard trick. I don't think it's frame perfect. I think it might have a couple of frames where you can do it, but it feels extremely precise, and usually it takes a few tries to get it. But what we just did there was, you know how I mentioned earlier how when the hand is activated, when we leave a loading zone, when we go back to the next loading zone, it is now disabled? Well, what happened there was we left the loading zone out of bounds, but it's very hard to see because it happened so quickly within a matter of frames. The hand did come back, but it didn't have enough time to come back on the screen. The game had it activated, but we just couldn't see it because it happened so quickly. So what we do is we go under the lighthouse out of bounds, and then we activate the trigger that sends us into the lighthouse from under it. So as we're entering the lighthouse, we sink below the map and touch the out of bounds trigger. So that way, and this all happens so quickly it's so hard to see, the hand comes out for a split second while we're going into the lighthouse. So when we enter it, the hand is now disabled. So now we're back to where we were with the hand. We're able to go out of bounds again. Now we're going into Sand Mountain. See, the order of segments is just so strange compared to the normal run. That's why it's a really cool category. And we're going to do another taxi skip here, using the Bubble Bowl momentum out of a cruise boost. And we have a lot of shiny objects too. So we're definitely going to be fine. We aren't going to have to do any extra bowling shots to make up for it. We're going to use a momentum exploit there to skip some walking by sliding through that cutscene. And we got another gold. Nice. Another best segment. Okay, we have to beat Mrs. Puff's time challenge now. Now, we have to be more careful here because in any percent we have five hearts or 5 pairs of underwear in this game. They have the underwear used for lives. So we only have 4 pairs right now in this category, but in any percent we have 5. So we have to be more careful about which tikis we activate for shiny objects. Because we use the explosive tikis to grind for shiny objects while we're going down this slope, but right here we're not going to hit this one because we don't have enough lives to finish the challenge. This category has fewer lives than any percent, so you have to be very careful about what you're doing and which things you get hurt by. And it's like we blinked and the category is almost finished. It's so short. Okay. So now we have to destroy these robots and hit these buttons. This hit's pretty precise. There are like a few frames to get it. Okay. I think I did the same thing in my 90% run where I was explaining it and I wasn't focused, so I couldn't get it. But what we're trying to do by that is hit the button as the Duplicatotron is being is exploding right before the blast zone hits us. So what we do here is a little exploit to push us into the spatula while we're waiting to gain movement control again. Because after jumping in a box, when you get a text box from character, you can't move for a few seconds. But because we had a cruise boost activated, we were pushed into the spatula so we didn't have to wait. Now this is called Law Jump right here. It's about time we get to the harder tricks in Sand Mountain. Lodge Jump is pretty precise. You'll see. It looks kind of crazy. There we go. So you barely go over it. Your foot just barely scrapes over the platform. Oh, I fell. Wow. Didn't expect that. Alright, so now we have the tikis activated, so we're going to get some shiny objects, and here we go. Got the spatula out of bounds. Now you might be wondering, what happens if you fail the trick that brings the hand back that brings the hand out of the run again, so you can go out of bounds? What if you fail that in downtown? Well, you'll be in Sand Mountain, and if you failed it, you'll be going out of bounds to do those things, and you'll just get grabbed by the hand, and then you just have to go back and gotta do this RCB here first before I continue explaining. Reverse cruise boosting adds so much to the run. It's just such a cool exploit. It's brand new and really exciting. But yeah, if you fail the hand disable in downtown rooftops, you run into a situation where you're gonna get grabbed by the hand in Sand Mountain when you're doing those out of bounds tricks, and the only thing you can do after that is just go back to Bikini Bottom or downtown and just go for the disable again.
The Mermalair.
So now we're in the Mermalair, and it's pretty deep into the run compared to any percent. Oh. Oh no. So we actually don't have enough lives to continue this because I messed up the damage boost. So I'm just going to reload the level and get our lives back. Again, with this category, you have to be really careful with your lives and how you spend them. Really careful. So use that damage boost back there to get the sock that you'd normally get for sliding down a slide, and you jump off the slide to get it, but instead, because we have damage boosting in the speed run, we just use that to get it pretty early. And now we have a kind of a shorter, slower section of the game where we have to throw these melons, hit buttons. Oh no. That's 2 deaths in one section, man. Anyway. So, this is one of those, like, the more slower paced, calming parts of the run, so it'd probably be a good time to read off donations here. Not too much to explain. We're just doing some pretty basic stuff. Use this catapult to launch up and go to this part, where we have to do another challenge. So all we have to do to finish this is get all the towers to be facing inward. And funny enough, the way we complete this challenge is by hitting all the towers once. Not more than once, but just once for all of them. Seems like a pretty complex challenge, but it's pretty easy. We know what we're doing. Alright, so we're going to hit this button and then use a momentum building exploit to skip to the final boss level for this level. So now we're in the boss battle for the Mermalair, and we're going to use another exploit to skip this boss. It's a pretty complex trick. We're going to start with a cruise boost and then an out-of-bounds clip. Now we're going to climb up to this area and activate this invisible trigger that's out here for some reason. Maybe the devs left it in because they were testing something and didn't think somebody would get out there, but that's pretty much it. We touch an invisible trigger and the boss fight ends. Don't ask me why. It's pretty cool though, and we see it twice more in this run actually. Okay. Security tunnel. Now instead of going through all these tunnels with the security tiles that can hurt you if you touch them, we're gonna just climb up this wall here and skip the whole thing. And we're gonna damage boost here to skip the second tunnel. Get this button, and we're off. Skip the security tunnel. This is kind of like the hub for the security tunnel, where you go through these tunnels with security in them. Just security tiles. If you touch them, you get hurt. If you touch them the wrong way at the wrong time. And then you return to the center part on the second level, and then you go through the next tunnel, and then you're on the third level. But we can just go straight to the second level and straight to the third level by climbing stuff. And we're not going to do the rolling ballroom in this category because it's really slow and unfun to watch. But it's also just generally slow. Like it isn't optimal to do it. It used to be in the 80% run a really long time ago, but it was just so slow that it had to be routed out eventually. Routed out of the game. Alright. So now we're ready to go to the Kelp Forest, and this is personally my favorite part of the run. A lot of intense platforming, the music is calming, and it's also something you can't see in the 80% run. A lot of the things we're going to do in here. Because due to the recent discovery of the camper skip, which is huge by the way, we were looking for it for almost a year, and I actually finally found it last month. But we can go out of bounds with a clip and collect a camper in the kelp caves, and that allows us to entirely change this route for the Kelp Forest. So in 90% we normally go in here first, but now we're going to do some other cool stuff. We're going to just do some platforming around this main area of the Kelp Forest to find the campers. So now that the one camper that we were waiting on finding an exploit for is now able to be gotten in a reasonable amount of time with that clip that we found. So now we're going to do all 6 campers and collect the spatula for it later. But to do that, we have a lot of platforming and flashy movement to go through. Alright, we skipped the ledge grab, nice. And we're going to do a death warp here, get this sock, and go back to this area, which is the end of the level. We use the checkpoint, an invisible checkpoint to send us back here, and we're going to go back to the beginning of the level now. Because we use an exploit to go to the end of the level first, that part with the gate over here. By standing next to it, we actually got this leaf to be unlocked, which lets us go back into this part. Because when the game was programmed, they expected you to walk out that way, so if you were to walk in to complete this challenge again, they added another bouncy leaf there for you to go back in with, but since the game thought we already completed it, it just spawned it there early, even though we didn't actually go in. So now we're playing the level backward, and we're going to skip this time challenge now by activating this trigger. And we did a reverse cruise boost there to get some momentum for a little bit of optimization. So what we just did there was we activated a time challenge by jumping over the slide. The game thought that we were currently on the slide and sliding down doing the time challenge, but we were still right here, so we just jumped in the box, appeared at the end of the level, and jumped into the ending trigger so we could just finish the time challenge. Okay, now we're just playing the kelp caves backward. And now I get to show you the camper skip. This is another really cool looking exploit that is not in the any percent run. We're going to do a clip out of bounds to activate a trigger under the map that gives us one of the final campers. There we go. So see how we went out of bounds and we went under the camper? We weren't actually in the map. We were just under it. But it still counts because we were within range of it. Okay. The kelp swamps. Similar to how we do it in any percent, but it's still a lot different because there's a lot of movement added onto it to get the rest of the campers and some socks. So after we collect the spatula in the cave down, in the cage down here, which you normally need Patrick to collect by freezing the swamp and sliding through this whole area, we can just abuse the cruise bubble mechanics and just grab it like this. And now we're going to do some platforming in the kelp swamps. There's a text box skip in here that's pretty precise, and missing it can cost you your cruise boost. You have to get it again. So let's see if we can get it. I love the soundtrack in this level. You don't really get to see you don't get to listen to the full thing in the 80% run because we don't spend a lot of time in here. All right, we got it. So what would happen if you got the text box before hitting that robot is you'd get hit by the robot, get the text box, have to get a cruise boost again. It's really a pain. So good thing we got it. Now we have to get this final camper, and the run's almost over actually. Oh, excuse me. Okay, now we're turning in all the campers to get this spatula. And it's also a best segment. Nice. Okay, now we have the Krusty Krab. And again, we do this at the end of the run so we can activate another really cool exploit. Don't know why it works, but it just does. We have to finish this arena fight inside the Krusty Krab. Destroy all the robots. Oh. Oh, this is kind of a bad setup. Now, unlike what usually happens in other categories, this is kind of strange. Mr. Krabs is usually invisible when we finish, but for some reason doing it later in the game causes Mr. Krabs to still be here. Even though he isn't supposed to be here, he's still technically in the beginning of the game by SpongeBob's Pineapple. In this category, for some reason he appears here when he doesn't in other categories because of the order we do things. I don't know why, it just works out, but I routed it in because it saves time. We can get both spatulas at the same time for exchanging shiny objects to Mr. Krabs and clearing out the Krusty Krab. So we do both of them at the same time, saves time. Now the Flying Dutchman's Graveyard. This has some of the harder exploits in the game, and it's also kind of the final stretch for the run. So we have one more sock to collect in here and we'll have 40, and that's all we need to finish. Gotta cross this gap, just barely, and get the spatula. So notice how I was mentioning before with camera locks while we get the spatulas. That time it didn't spin, which is what we want. We want it to push us forward so we can get closer to this trampoline. So it's just a cruise boost momentum abuse right there. Okay, we gotta be careful here. Okay, what just happened is I was mashing and my controller didn't read my input for the mashing until it was too late, so we drowned. That's pretty unfortunate, but I ordered a new controller because my controller does stuff like that often. Should be coming in the mail soon, so it shouldn't be a problem within like a week or so when it comes. So this is the backup, we just kind of go around this way. It's also a pretty tough exploit too. Not to say it's easy, and I would have gotten it if I didn't get my input eaten. But that's just kind of what happened there. It's pretty unfortunate. Alright. So we do a cruise boost off Squidward and do another out of bounds exploit to get this spatula. A lot of this stuff is, toward the end of the game, is kind of similar to any percent, but a lot of smaller things are tacked on that make it a little bit different. The beginning of the game is really what's extremely different. So what we just did there was a manually canceled cruise boost, because there's no wall for the cruise bubble to automatically burst on by itself. We had to detonate the cruise bubble for ourselves and cruise boost at the same time. So it's a lot of inputs and it's stressful on the hands, but we only have to do it once in the run. Another best segment, nice. Okay, cannons. So this is the part of the run where we have to activate the cannons on the Flying Dutchman's ship. The reason why we have to do that in the casual game is because we need to destroy the Dutchman's ship by hitting these cannons. I mean, we have to destroy the robot ship by activating the Dutchman's cannons and destroying the robot cannons. But you're going to see kind of a cool exploit that I guess I wouldn't even expect to work if I were trying to find tricks in this game. It was kind of found by accident by somebody a long time ago before I even started playing. So you watch this cutscene here, and normally what will happen if you did it correctly is this final cannon launches and you go to the final boss fight. But since we didn't destroy the robot cannons, it's going to destroy these cannons, and it's like, okay, that's basically the game telling us we have to destroy the robot cannons, otherwise we can't advance in the level. Well, funny enough, we don't actually have to be sent to the final boss fight. We can just teleport to it because there's a bug in the game that lets you warp to it after you hit that cutscene, even if the robot cannons aren't even destroyed. So let's just skip a lot of stuff. We don't even have to go to the robot ship, we can just skip it. And now we do the Flying Dutchman boss fight skip. Similar to Prawn Skip, where we go out of bounds and do some movement to get up to high ground to a point where we can reach the trigger. And we just have to touch this trigger to end the boss fight. For nobody knows why. They just left it in the game. And here we are, going on to the final boss fight. There's a little bit of downtime here, just a bit. Another spot where we can probably read donations just here when we're giving the socks to Patrick at the end of the game. This category is very fast-paced throughout pretty much the entire run. There are only a couple, or maybe even a few spots like this where it's a little bit slower. But now we have the magic number 75 and ready to go to the final boss fight. And here we are, back in the chum bucket. Now we have to fight Robo SpongeBob, or should I say we have to skip Robo SpongeBob. Now I had a conversation with one of the developers who made this game, and he said that the same person who programmed this boss fight was the one who also programmed Dutchman and Prawn. Which doesn't take me by surprise, because we can still abuse invisible triggers on these bosses. The one that the same guy made. While the ones that aren't in this category can't be abused. And we got tartar sauce skip. It's a random skip that allows us to get an early boost down to this platform. It only saves a second or two. About somewhere between a second and a half and 2 seconds, depending on how much momentum you get. But yeah, it's still, you can still get down there with a regular boost, but if you get lucky, you can do that one. And now we have to destroy the final fuses inside the robot's brain to finish off the run. Normally we'd be attacked by robot plankton up here, but since the game doesn't know that we're here yet, we can just finish the game with no trouble. Because the AI doesn't know that we're here. Time. Wow, 54 minutes even. This is a very tough category, man. This category is constant movement, insane tricks. It's very, very stressful, and a lot is packed into the 54 minutes that I just showed you here. It's also very new, so there's still a lot of room for improvement, especially with my PB and the route as well. So I think it's a really exciting, cool thing that I really want to show at a marathon, because there's so much work here that can be done. It's a lot different than the 80% run, as you can clearly see. It's a lot flashier, more exciting. I think it'd be really cool to play this in a GDQ. Especially since any percent was a pretty big success for its time slot at AGDQ, so I think if this game gets in, it could really make some noise. And I was gonna say make a splash, but I thought that'd sound kind of lame because it's SpongeBob. Alright. Yeah, this category is really cool, and I put many hours into it over the past month trying to develop it and get to where it is now, where it's not just any percent with cruise boosting. It's so much more than that now. There are so many new tricks that we're using, more abusing new strats like disabling the hand in the run, not just once, but doing it more than once. Just a lot of cool things that aren't viable in any percent that I really think that people need to see, because it really is cool. It's like the NG plus of SpongeBob. Alright, so that's my early powers submission. I consider this my main submission because I really like to run this category over any percent in the marathon if this game does get chosen. Anyway, I just want to take this time again to thank you for letting me play this once, and hopefully if you liked my commentary, if you liked my game, maybe this is the next big thing. I think it has a lot of potential, even not just to show off new tricks that are already known, because I'm sure there are still more things to come. It's like revisiting the game with a whole new look at things, and hardly any grinding, just pure movement and cruise boosting. So definitely fast-paced and exciting enough, I'd say, to be recognized its own legitimate and cool category, just like any percent is. Alright, so that's all I had to say. Thanks for considering my submission, and guess enjoy the rest of your day. Alright. Thanks again for watching, guys. Appreciate it.